Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. We've had our long-term test Ford Maverick Hybrid for a little over a year now, and we've been doing a lot of mods this summer to upgrade its capabilities out on the trail, make it a little bit more of an overlander, at least the best a hybrid front-wheel drive pickup can be. In the centerpiece, a new set of tires and wheels featuring Firestone Destination A all-terrain tires. All right, my friends, so let's talk about what we've got here. On the vehicle are a brand new set of tires and wheels. The wheels, LP Adventure LP5 17x8 alloys. This is a brand of wheel that you most commonly see on Subaru. Most of what they offer, they're really into the Subi crowd, but they also happen to make a set that fits nicely on the Maverick. The tires though, Firestone Destination A all-terrain tires. This is a tire that Firestone designed primarily for light trucks and SUVs and crossovers. The size 245/65/17. They call it a soft-roading tire, and that's because it's an all-terrain tire that has a relatively aggressive tread, but it's also designed to perform well on the highway and around town. So looking at the tread, it's got a continuous center rib, which does two things. That gives it better on-center feel when you're going down the highway, and a little bit better grip and a little bit better of a turn-in feel when you go in and out of corners. But it also makes it better in the wet by creating a center channel that pushes water out to the sides. And when you look at the sides, that deep channel goes all the way out to the shoulder of the tire, which really helps evacuation of water, mud, and other things. So this is a tire that was designed to perform well on the road as well as give you more bite out in the rough. Another thing you might notice is that the stance of the truck is a little bit different. We've also added a zone off-road leveling kit to the truck. And that leads us to the conversation about ground clearance. We've got increased ground clearance just by virtue of upsizing the tires. They are 1 inch larger in diameter than the stock wheels and tires that came on the truck, that being 225/65/17 Continental Pro contacts on 17x7 steel wheels. And those were 28.5 inches in diameter. These are 29.5 inches. So that gives us a total of 1 inch extra diameter, which gives us an extra ½ inch of ground clearance just by putting them on the truck. With the zone off-road leveling kit in my installation, that's an extra 3/4 of an inch in the front. So now I've got 1 1/4 inches extra ground clearance at the front, which is important on these trucks. They tend to sit low, and an extra ½ inch at the rear. So that really does pay dividends in having a little bit more confidence out here on the trail in the wild. All right, so let's take this for a drive and talk about what the experience of these tires is from behind the wheel. Now, we did a preview video about 2 weeks ago asking you, the viewers, what you wanted to know about these new tires and wheels and all of that. And one of the first questions that came up was, what are the weights? Well, this tire and wheel assembly is 7 pounds more per assembly than the stock wheels and tires. Now, the tires quite a bit heavier per, but these wheels are actually slightly less than the stock steel wheels. But overall, we're 7 pounds more at each corner. And so that does a couple of things. It adds more weight to the rolling assembly. That's momentum. And so it does feel a little bit heavier off the line when you go to take off. But once you get up to power, it doesn't really seem to affect the power level very much. The one thing I do notice driving around town is when you really get on the brakes from a higher speed, you have to lean into the pedal a little bit more. So that is something that I noticed. On the pavement, these are tires that, because of that center rib in the tread design, offers a pretty good level of on-center feel. The overall ride is about the same, although I feel a little bit more rubber and isolation, which I should. I've got a lot more sidewall now than I did before. A lot of people were asking me about road noise with these. All-terrain tires tend to be a little bit noisier, and so far I haven't noticed a big difference in loudness. I did a decibel test, which was 63.4 on our 70-mile-an-hour test loop, and that's just a couple ticks more than it was when I first tested the truck at 63.2 when it was brand new on the Continental. So just a slight uptick in road noise, and you do tend to hear a little bit of that buzz or a little bit of that hum that goes along with all-terrain tires. Again, I kind of like that. So my first impressions are that on the back roads, on the highway and around town, these are tires that offer about the same level of comfort and quality of ride that the stock tires did. The level of grip, maybe a little bit better than before. Now, the other big question I get from a lot of people is, what about the fuel economy? Typically, when you upsize tires, no matter what vehicle we're talking about, you always lose 1 to 3 miles per gallon. I have to tell you, in my first 3 tanks since I've changed these tires, I don't have data yet. I'm sorry to say that, but my first tank was about the same, my second tank a little bit less, and the third tank a little bit more. But the problem is that the last 3 or 4 weeks of my driving hasn't been normal. It's been the hottest heat wave we've ever had here in Arizona. We're talking 115 to 120 degree days for 3 weeks. And so air conditioning on all the time. And my highway and city driving balance has been all out of whack. So honestly, it's going to take me a while before I have any definitive data when it comes to overall fuel economy. But I can tell you that when it comes to measuring my fuel economy, unless you have ForeScan and you can actually enter the tire size into the computer on the truck, it's a little bit different. Because of the diameter change in the tires, it's 1.035 is the factor of how much larger these tires are. So the diameter, the circumference, the amount of miles you're traveling is 1.035 more than with the stock tires. So when I get to the end of my tank and I figure out my mileage, I look at my mileage in the odometer, I multiply that by 1.035 and divide it by the gallons to get actual fuel economy. The one thing I will say is that the fuel gauge that tells you the MPG has always been about 2 to 3 miles per gallon optimistic since I bought the truck, actually exactly 2 MPG. So if anything, those larger tires and wheels have made my MPG gauge a little bit more of an honest man. Time will tell. So there it is for the pavement. Now the question that I really wanted to find out about, and this is my very first time doing this, we're doing it together, is off the pavement. So we're out here in the desert on my favorite gravel washboard road, and this is really where I wanted to increase the capability, the confidence, and the ability to have traction when I'm out in the wild. I love coming out here and going camping. I love coming out here and going to the hiking trails and exploring. And when it rains, this gets slick, and it's really hard with the stock tires. Now, when we first tested this truck in this very same spot on the gravel washboard road, this was a truck that handled very well given its very basic suspension. And I will say that back then, just as is now, the feeling out here is quite good in terms of ride quality, and the level of bite that I'm getting on these corners with the gravel is actually quite impressive. It's a little bit better, I'd say, and that's what I was hoping for. The whole point of this tire and wheel upgrade, as well as the leveling kit, was not only to give it a little bit of a beefier stance, but to actually give me more capability out here. I come out here a lot, and I like a vehicle that I can confidently bring out here, that I don't have to be too careful with, and that if it's been raining, which unfortunately it hasn't, I don't have any mud for you guys, but this gets really slick out here and it's easy to get stuck. It's very easy to get stuck in wet desert, trust me. I wanted to be able to come out here and not only not worry about scraping the underneath of this thing, but to be able to crawl up hills and go through gullies and washes, knowing that I'm going to be able to get home, right? That's the whole point of a vehicle that enables you to get out. And this leveling kit with these tires and wheels gives me that extra 1 1/4 inches of clearance up front, so I don't have to go quite as slow over some of these dips and over some of these undulations. But it also makes me worry a little bit less about that big rock sitting in the middle of the road, or maybe I don't have to be quite as cautious. I can maybe go a little bit faster. That is the point. But so driving around out here on the trail, what I have noticed is that the ride is a little bit softer. I've got more sidewall now than I did before. And we're gonna go up a hill here. Now, I gotta be honest with you, this is my first time doing this in this truck ever. It's my first time doing this in strictly a front wheel drive vehicle. Every vehicle I've ever brought up here, it's a pretty steep hill with some moguls in it. And I've always done it to test how well the articulation works in the off-road traction systems. So we're going to see how this works with just front wheel drive, or if it works at all. We might not have success. So we're just kind of going nice and slow and easy. The whole point of tires like this gives me some extra bite that I wouldn't otherwise have. Getting a little bit of slippage here. The traction control is working. There it is. So I don't have all-wheel drive here, but I still got to the top of the hill. I am making the best of my front-wheel drive by adding the extra traction of these all-terrain tires. So, yep, lack of four-wheel drive didn't stop me from getting to the top of the hill. Woof. And coming back down, this hill's got some pretty deep undulations, and I'm not quite as worried about scraping the underneath as I would have been had I not had the extra ground clearance that I have now. So yes, while you still have to pick your trails a little bit more carefully with a front-wheel drive Maverick than you would if you had an all-wheel drive or even the Tremor, this goes a long way to getting me further down the road than I used to be able to go. Yeah. There you have it, my friends, the Firestone Destination AT2 all-terrain tire for crossovers, SUVs, and light trucks. Now, my first impressions, obviously pretty good. I like the way they make the truck feel, and I like the extra capability that I now enjoy out here on the trail. Now, I know it's not a 4x4. I know it's not a Raptor. It's not a Tremor. It's not an FX4. I get it, but this does go a long way to making the best a front-wheel drive hybrid pickup truck can be. And until Ford offers this in all-wheel drive, that's about the best we can do. And I am happy with the results. I can more comfortably and more confidently load up the truck for camping and come out here and go a little further off-road than I would have on those very slick Continental Pro contacts the truck came with. And with the extra ground clearance that I've got now, I don't have to worry so much about those extra rocks and those extra ditches that I drive through. I can be a little bit more confident, and that's the point. Plus, the way they look. I think it looks pretty sharp. So we have a lot more content to come around our off-roading, overlanding upgrades that we're doing here. The Zone Off-Road Leveling Kit, we've got videos coming up on that. We're also coming up on our 30,000 mile check-in. Yeah, 30,000 miles already. And we'll also be doing a little bit more content around our overlanding makeover. So you can see all of that on our Maverick playlist. We've got over 70 videos right now, one of the largest playlists of Maverick content anywhere on the internet. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel right there and stay informed of everything we do. Either way, stay tuned.